if we work together, cooperate, and comply with the requirements and the measures, then we can keep community transmission rates low, and there is a chance that we can enter phase 3 before the end of the year.
Good evening, I'm Olivia Quay with Haryanto Demand coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom.
Education Minister and co-chair of the Multi-Ministry Task Force, Lawrence Wong, says if existing COVID-19 measures are maintained and community cases remain low, Singapore may enter the third and final phase of its reopening by the end of this year.
As part of Phase 3, gatherings outside homes could be increased from 5 to 8 people. Similarly, 8 visitors could be allowed on home visits, allowing larger families to congregate.
In addition, capacity limits in venues like museums, places of worship and wedding receptions may be increased with multiple zones of 50 persons permitted.
When can all of these measures take place? That is the big question, and the answer is that it really depends on all of us. Because if we work together, cooperate and comply with the requirements and the measures, then we can keep community transmission rates low, and there is a chance that we can enter phase 3 before the end of the year. On the other hand, if we let our guard down and new clusters emerge, then this timeline will have to be pushed back, and we do not know when we can resume going into phase 3. It may have to be pushed back for a long time or even indefinitely, depending on the situation.
Well, the Health Ministry said Singapore has to be prepared to stay in phase 3 for a prolonged period, potentially more than a year.
But to even reach phase 3, several conditions need to be met. As such, the COVID-19 task force will pilot rapid antigen pre-event testing for larger scale activities. Pre-event testing requires event participants to be tested shortly before the event, either at the event venue itself or at a separate testing facility.
Well, the mass events for the pilot will be identified by the government from mid-October to December, including business-to-business events, weddings and live performances. And only participants who test negative will be allowed to take part in the event.
To do this, we need tests that provide rapid results. The PCR test is still the gold standard that yields highly accurate results, but it takes time, and the test may need to be taken 1 or 2 days in advance. We are exploring the use of antigen rapid tests for pre-event testing, which can return fairly accurate results quickly and can be administered just before the event. Some of the events we will be piloting will include, for example, business-to-business events and wedding receptions. This does not mean that we can throw caution to the wind and ignore safe management measures at these events. In fact, despite the tests, there is always a possibility that an infected person may not be detected. So even if the test results are negative, safe management measures will still have to be strictly adhered to at these events.
Other conditions that will determine when we reach phase 3 include Singaporeans sticking to safe management measures, including small group sizes, safe distancing and exercising social responsibility.
More venues will also require people to check in to safe entry using the Trace Together app or tokens in a bid to strengthen Singapore's contact tracing regime.
We are not likely to do all these measures all at one go. So some of these measures may be implemented progressively. We may adjust the group size first, or we may adjust to permit the larger scale activities first. It depends on the situation and depends also on the various pilots that we are carrying out at the moment. When they are successful, we may roll out earlier, and as we progress towards phase 3, then some of these measures will then be implemented progressively. So don't expect a big bang and someday we will announce that all these measures will be implemented all at one go and voila, we are at phase 3. It's not likely to happen that way. We are going to implement these measures progressively. It's also important to bear in mind that phase 3 is not a declaration of victory, that we have now succeeded in overcoming COVID-19 and all of us should go around celebrating and forget about all the safe distancing measures.
The task force also shared that Singapore is most likely to start making plans to vaccinate different parts of the population from next year onwards. The nation is looking to procure several different vaccines and are tracking the studies very carefully.
We have convened also an expert panel of doctors and scientists to advise us with regard to which of the vaccine candidates would be the most suitable for our setting. We're looking not just at trying to get one or two, but we may procure a range of different vaccines. Some of the vaccines will be perhaps more suitable for different types of groups. We understand that some of the phase 3 studies have started to be extended that allows for testing of older people and of various different types, so that we have more confidence that when it comes to vaccinating our vulnerable population, these candidates, vaccine candidates, do have the efficacy and are safe for these people.
And sharing updates on higher risk settings like the nightlife industry, the task force said that pilot programs to help the sector are being considered, but it's unlikely businesses like bars, pubs, karaoke lounges can return to pre-COVID days.
The government will put in place measures to help these business operators and owners to exit and pivot to new areas.
The nature of the activities themselves, of such activities, means that you have people socializing in close contact, often in a small enclosed space, and the risk is very much higher. We've seen it in many other countries where large clusters break out in these sorts of settings. So even at the start of phase 3, when we enter phase 3, we do not expect to reopen these or resume these activities anytime soon. We are prepared to consider pilots in some of these settings with much more stringent safe management measures in place.
Meanwhile, there are also updates on the activities allowed. From November 1st, live performances will be allowed to resume at designated live performance venues with up to 2 zones of 50 audience members. Safe management measures must continue to be observed. That includes limits on the number of production crew and performers who can be unmasked, as well as safe distancing on stage, backstage, between the performers and audience, and among the audience.
Wedding receptions will be allowed at HDB common areas managed by town councils, but they must be organised by a professional wedding organiser or a company providing related services. Wedding receptions are subject to a cap of 100 unique attendees, including the wedding couple but excluding vendors, as well as prevailing safe management measures.
And from Thursday, in-person work-related events such as conferences and EGMs will also be allowed to take place at third-party venues with up to 50 persons per event and subject to any additional premise owners' policies.
Visit straitstimes.com for more details on today's press conference.
You can also watch the full press conference on our YouTube channel later tonight. Subscribe by hitting the red button below. Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Kwe. Have a good night.